welcome back to the channel. As you can see here, we're at the start of another jersey quest. This is BGM mode this time. This is kind of the instruction videos. We go over kind of team, player, jersey, all that good stuff. So as you can see here, we are playing as the Toronto Maple Leafs in NHL 15. So, in terms of, let's see if you guys here to show manage roster. Defense. Yeah, so jersey quest player this time is Eric Brewer. Because you remember on the last one, Flyers one, so we're gonna kind of go through, like basically like sets of 5, like a kind of like putting a roster of 5 goalie, defenseman, forwards. We've kind of hit particular milestones. We're going kind of games played now. So obviously for goalies, the silver stick is 500 game. For defensemen, it is defenseman for like skaters, it's 1,000. So we're kind of, as we move on to left defenseman, as Eric Brewer's left defenseman. He was Islanders' first round pick back in the late 90s. Didn't really work out for the Islanders, but obviously he had a pretty solid NHL career, like 1,009 games in total. So he's like kind of not at the bottom, but the players below him are all either didn't play for the Islanders or all like way too old. So he played 89 games for the Islanders in his career, spent the bulk of it with the Oilers, Lightning, and Blues. Where I think he was a Blues captain for a couple seasons, but he ended up his final season was 14-15 season here, where he kind of bounced between the Lightning, Ducks, and Leafs in quick succession, ending the season with the Leafs where he played his 1,000th game on March 21st against the Senators, which is a Leafs loss. Kind of unsurprising because this is when the Leafs were kind of in their really suck period before they kind of, I don't know if William Nylander was actually in this game because like whole roster updates and all that kind of good stuff. If you go to roster moves, it's just William Nylander in here in the system. Oh no, there he is, William Nylander. Haha. But he has no picture. We need to give him top 9. That is harsh. So he's like one of the best players in the league today. But oh, Carter Verhaeghe too. Carter Verhaeghe. He was part of the Leafs system. Bottom 6. Jeez, what do you mean bottom 6? That's so not correct. But whatever are you gonna do? But yeah, so Eric Brewer, 1,000th game, is on the road to the Senators. The jersey is the Leafs away from that season, which is kind of like the old like blocky style Leaf, not like the modern Leaf. Just like in the last seasons they wore like the blocky style ones before they moved to like the current kind of Maple Leafs crest, which look more like an actual leaf. But yeah, so it's the player jersey. Guys, for the reason why 1,000th game. In terms of expectations for the season, obviously the Leafs, as I said, the Leafs sucked before kind of picking up Marner's, Matthews, and Nylander, all that good stuff, and kind of turning it around into Mike Babcock. This is like the last season before Babcock was hired. Everybody finished with a 30, 44, and 8 record, and we're second. No, they were bottom because this is pre-expansion, so there's only 30 teams. They were finished bottom in the East that year with that record. So obviously we're not going to be winning many games. So this first season probably be getting quick, kind of zoom through. See it. Maybe if the game thinks we're actually better than we are, maybe we'll make the playoffs, but I highly doubt it. And then what to see, because obviously at the end of this, he said he played 1,009 games, and he plays his 1,000th game this season. After the 2014-15 season, Eric Brewer ended up, I think like he trying to make some rosters, like he would train and stuff, but then like no one wanted to sign him as a free agent, so he just retired. Instead of like kind of playing in Europe or Russia or something like that, he just straight up retired. So this might be a quick one, but as we saw, if we go back to edit lines, now we go to defense. He is still an 82 overall, so he might be able to stick around for a season or two longer. I don't know how many years left are on his contract. Let's say here, attributes, statistics, contract. Yeah, so he's got 1 year left on his deal. So we'll see. He might want to stay. Might want to go. See, the thing is that being our bottom pair defenseman, right? Because we have Dion Phaneuf and Jake Gardner here. So like, if I kind of set the lines up as I would set them up. It would go something like this. Here we have kind of 3 right shot defensemen, and 3 left shot defensemen, kind of all set up nicely together. So yeah, I guess this might be a short one. So again, also because this is NHL 15, which is like the worst like NHL game ever. Or there's like not even like an real AHL and stuff in this game. Like the mode is like bare bones as heck. So yeah, there's probably gonna be another giant video. Probably not that giant, cause it's gonna be like maybe a season or 2, because Eric Brewer is old. But this is gonna be kind of this video compressing the entire thing to one video instead of a bunch of smaller videos. So I'm gonna stop talking for now, because this is kind of the end of the introduction. And I start talking again in a couple of seconds. It'll be to recap this 14-15 season. So hopefully you enjoy it. Thank you. Okay, so here we are after the 2014-15 season. So kind of starting off with the regular season, as you can kind of see the conveniently placed Stats Central. We did way better than the Leafs actually did that year by a grand total of 16 wins. Finished with a 46-32-4 record, which is good enough for second in the Atlantic Division with 96 points. So obviously that means we made the playoffs. In terms of goals for per game, we were at 3.16. Goals against per game, 2.84. I guess if we go deeper into the Stats Central, you can see here, Phil the Thrill, was our leading scorer with 89 points. He had 43 goals and 46 assists. In terms of Eric Brewer, let's go to defenseman. Where is he at? There he is. Eric Brewer finished with 2 goals, 10 assists, and 12 points. So kind of not bad, I would say, for a defensive defenseman on the third pairing. He was a plus 20 as well, which is pretty good. So not really letting us down as a third pairing defenseman, which is good. But a little bit of a spoiler also in there, but ignore that for now. But yeah, so 2 goals, 10 assists. Okay, so let's look at the playoff tree, which as you can see here, it's like us all on one screen. I don't know what the check marks are for, to be honest. But yeah, so as you can see, we made it to the Stanley Cup final in our first season, which is pretty epic. And then we got swept by the Blues, which was not epic at all. It was unfortunate. Though 2 of the losses were overtime losses, so it could have been a very different series, but it is what it is. So as you can see, round 1, we got the Boston Bruins, Maple Leafs arch nemesis, and we actually did the impossible. We beat them in a game 7. So we won game 1 4-3. They won game 2 5-4. We won the next 2 by identical scores of 3-2. They enforced a game 7 with 3-1 and 4-1 wins. And we did the impossible, as I said, and won game 7 5-2 to eliminate the Boston Bruins, who would finish with 95 points in the regular season. We then got matched up against the Detroit Red Wings, who finished first in division with 104 points. And you see we beat them in 6 games. We won the first game 4-1. They tied the series up with a 5-4 win, take a series lead with a 2-0 win. Then Detroit tied it back up again with a 2-1 win. And we won games 5 and 6, 4-1 and 3-1 to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, where we got matched up against the Pittsburgh Penguins. We beat them in 5, won game 1 5-2. They won game 2 4-2 to tie the series up. And we then did the gentleman's sweep kind of deal and won 2-1, 3-2, and 4-1 to eliminate them, made the cup final. As I said, we got swept. As you can see, we got swept by the Blues, who were the third in the Central, 96 points. We finished on the same amount of points in the regular season, so I think it'd be a pretty even matchup. But they beat us 3-1, and then 2 overtime losses, 4-3, 4-3, and then 5-1 at Game 4 to win the cup. So a bit unfortunate that we couldn't win the Stanley Cup despite making it all the way. But is what it is, I guess, in terms of player stats. Yeah, this game is like borked. Alright, back to that. Yeah, so all skaters. So Phil Kessel and JVR were our 2 leading scorers. We each had 10 goals, 10 assists for 20 points. In terms of Eric Brewer, it's probably faster to go this way. Here we go. Boom. He finished with 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. He was a +6. So he was pretty solid for us on the third pairing. So kind of successful season to build upon there with a nice playoff start. Draft, again, the scouting system in this game, like, I don't understand how it works at all. It's kind of buns, so it was kind of name recognition value, like, do I actually know which of these players actually became NHLers? And we didn't really get anyone that good, to be honest, except, I guess that's not even true. For the most part, we didn't really get anyone that good, except for we got Mikko Rantanen. I know Mikko, like, one who's making over 10 million a year now for the Stars, in, like, I think around 5 or 6 or something. I think he was, like, top 9 potential or something like that. So that was probably our biggest hit of the draft, but the rest was kind of eh. So in terms of, I guess we could look at awards to kind of wrap that section up here. So as you can see, Stanley Cup, the Blues. President's Trophy went to the Kings, who finished with 106 points. Then got a final matchup. Individual awards. And this game was really bad. Okay. Yeah, so John Tavares is the scorer in the NHL with 105 points for the New York Islanders. So he won like most of these trophies. He won the Hart Ross, the Hart. Norris went to Drew Doughty of the Kings. Lady Byng went to Phil the Thrill, so we got an award under our belt. Calder went to Evgeny Kuznetsov with a picture. Conn Smythe went to Brian Elliott, who also won the Vezina and the Jennings. Masterton went to Islander Johnny Boychuk. Selke went to, unsurprisingly, Pavel Datsuk. And then Lindsay and the Rocket Richard both went to John Tavares. So he did a pretty clean sweep with the awards, pretty much. Though it was pretty cool that Phil Kessel, because he did, with his 89 points, he did finish 10, 9, 8, 7th in scoring, so pretty good. So that's kind of the regular season stuff. So in terms of kind of free agency, so we went into this, obviously Eric Brewer's contract was expiring. So I signed him up for like a 1-year deal at like a 2-something or a 3, yeah, like a 2-something $million cap hit. So we're gonna at least one more season with him, kind of take it season by season because he is older. See how it goes. So we have at least kind of next season. So then in terms of other areas of need and stuff, so we went into it, kind of signed some guys to new contracts, had a little bit of cap space left. So the biggest areas we're looking for were third line right winger, and then the kind of second pairing right-sided defenseman. So kind of was like, all right, we're going to go into free agency, see if there's anyone really good available. Kind of went in, there was not really anyone that solid. That like either like defensive, there were some good defensemen, like Mike Green was available, but he wanted way too much money, so we didn't have enough cap space to bring him in. And right wingers really was like no one of like third line quality, so I was like, all right, you know what we're gonna do? We had 2 goalies. We had Jonathan Bernier, who's an 87 overall, and then we had James Reimer, who is his backup, I guess, for most of the season. So I was like, all right, you know what? We don't really need 2 starting level goalies. I can trade James Reimer, and then kind of either use that to use him to bring in defenseman. So what I did was I traded him and then like a depth forward we had, who was like an 80 overall, to the Winnipeg Jets for, as you kind of might have seen in the stat screen, Jacob Trouba, and a 3rd round pick in the 2016 draft. So we're able to fill a position of need, and got a 3rd round pick in the process as well to get rid of the 80 overall forward, then kind of move on James Reimer to get something in value returns, which is pretty cool. So then to solve that problem, because I obviously the backup goalie problem, I saw the his first name was Harding, 84 overall, like 30-something-year-old goalie to be the backup. So we still had a 3rd line right winger problem, so I kind of went through other teams, kind of saw who was looking to get rid of, who wanted some draft picks, who had some right wingers available, who had like small cap hits because they don't have a ton of space. Ow, sorry about that. My elbow slipped off the table, but got all the way to the Tampa Bay Lightning and saw that somehow Nikita Kucherov at a relatively low trade value, and he had he was like 1 year left on like a little bit under $1 million cap hit. So I was like, all right, Tampa Bay, if you're willing to take the 3rd I just got from Winnipeg and our own 3rd round pick next year's draft, I will gladly take Kucherov off your hands. And Lightning were like, sure. And I was like, all right, sweet. So scooped up Nikita Kucherov as well. So that's like a pretty exciting addition to the squad. So 3 free agent additions, but additions in pair were Kucherov, Trouba, and then Harding to fill our 3 areas of need in the roster. So kind of with that in mind, our expectations for next season, considering we basically are like at around the same or upgraded basically, I think, kind of in each of these positions. You should, I guess, hopefully make the playoffs again. And then I guess we'll be actually have another run to the Cup final. Hopefully, fingers crossed. That'd be nice. But yes, I'm expecting we should at least make the playoffs and hopefully go on a deep run for you to win the Cup. But yes, this is kind of this season, so it's kind of for this section. So in a couple seconds after I stop talking, it'll be the 2015-2016 season recap, and you'll find out if we were able to win the Cup. Okay, so here we are at the end of the 2015-16 season. So let's kind of get into it. As you can see, and the kind of stats through down here, we finished with a 51, 26, and 5 record, which was good for 107 points. So a 11-point improvement upon the prior season. So making progress. That's good. So we also finished first in the Atlantic and first in the East in the regular season. But not President's Trophy. The President's Trophy went to our rivals, the Blues, who finished with 112 points. In terms of goals for per game, we finished with 3.2. Goals against 2.4, so a solid gap there. In terms of leading scorer, you can see it was James Van Riemsdyk, who finished with 86 points. That was 48 goals and 38 assists. In terms of Eric Brewer's stats, keep scrolling. There he is. So he finished with 1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points. So I'd say pretty decent, especially considering his overall dropped a point. But there's a decrease, but his overall decrease, so it kind of makes sense. In terms of, I guess then let's go, because that's regular season. In terms of the playoffs, I can see here the Wild beat the Lightning in 7 to win the Stanley Cup, which means we obviously didn't win it, which sucks. See, in the first round, we got matched up against the we are the Maple Leafs. We got matched up against the Montreal Canadiens, our historical rival, which it took 7 games. We won the opening game 5-1. Montreal then stormed out to a 3-1 lead with 3-2, 4-0, and 5-4 wins. And on the brink of elimination, we were able to force Game 7 to win with 4-1, 5-1, and 3-1 wins to move on to take on the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 2. We won Game 1, 4-3. They won Game 2, 5-1. We then took a 2-1 series lead with a 4-2 win. And Lightning won the next 3 in a row, 2 of which were in overtime, so it could have been a very different series if we had those results flipped. You would have won 5, and so we ended up losing in 6 with 2-1, 5-4, and then 2-1 losses. So it sucks. At least the Lightning did beat the Rangers, doing the Lord's work, and then lost the Wild in 7. In terms of player stats in the playoffs, what was also interesting was like when we got eliminated in the playoffs. Like I went to see kind of like look at our stats, put in my little spreadsheet. It said the favorite heading into the conference finals was the Wild, and they ended up winning. So that's very interesting. I wonder I guess it's too late to check now, but if last season we went in, did the game list St. Louis as like favorites? Is that why they won? It'd be very interesting to see maybe next season if that kind of also holds true. But you see Phil Kessel was our leading scorer with 18 points in 13 games with 8 goals and 10 assists. Eric Brewer right down here finished with 2 assists for 2 points and a +3. So obviously he wasn't the one kind of doing us harm on the defensive side with a +3. So good work there. In terms of awards, let's move over to that. So, as we said, Wild won the Cup. As I said, Blues won the President's Trophy, and then the Wild beat the Lightning in the Cup Finals we saw. Player awards, Sidney Crosby was the leading scorer in the league with 102 points. So, he kind of did most of the award getting with the Art Ross. The Hart, Norris went to Duncan Keith. Lady Byng went to Henrik Zetterberg. Calder went to New York Islander Jonathan Drouin. Conn Smythe went to Nicholas Backstrom, the goalie. So it seems like this is one of the games for the goalies win the Conn Smythe every year. Vezina went to Henrik Lundqvist. Jennings went to Jonathan Bernier, so pretty solid. But despite that, his overall still went down a point, so explain that to me. Masterton went to, I have no idea what his first name is, sorry sir, but and Grossman of the Ducks. Selke went to Jonathan Tays. Not a surprising result there. Then the Lindsay and the Rocket Richard went to Sidney Crosby. There was top 10 scoring. We did have someone in the top 10. JVR finished with 86 points, as we saw, and that was good for 8th in the league. And I think Phil Kessel was like 12th with like his like 81 or 82 points. So they're doing well in the scoring department there. So in terms of kind of free agency and stuff, because this is kind of different from 2004, it's a lot more like regimented in this obviously salary cap and stuff. You can't just like go signing people willy-nilly. So we are making 0 moves in like the July 1st free agency hub day. But if we go into here into the updates, we go into player and pick trading. As you can see here, I have traded our captain, Dion Phaneuf, to the Arizona Coyotes, who were in the playoff hunt last year. They finished first in the Pacific for a 2018 second and a 2018 third. So the reason why is because if I didn't do this, I was considering ending the series, because as you saw there, Eric Brewer decreased to an 81 overall, and Morgan Riley, who's obviously one of the least best defensemen today, increased in overall. I think he was like a 79 or an 80 at the start of the season. Like, it was on the bench basically the whole year, then was on the bench basically the entire year because we didn't have any defensemen get injured. And when he went to the contract screen, he was like an 80. I think he's an 84. Let's see. Let's double check. Let's actually go, because we can actually go in and look. Let's look. Maple Leafs. This section here. View contracts, I guess. We do have a lot of cap space, which is cool. Install contracts. Defenseman. Where is he at? Yeah, so he was an 84 overall. So we would have had him, Jake Gardner, and Dion Phaneuf all basically ahead of where we're in the kind of depth chart and stuff. Then I was like, all right, maybe I should end the series here because he's not going to play. But then I was like, you know what we'll do? I will. Did I end up retaining on the Dion Phaneuf trade? Oopsie, I feel like I did. Oh, I guess it's kind of either here nor there. All things considered. Did I actually end up Did I end up retaining on that? Shoot. There's no way to tell, is there? Uh, yeah, I feel like I ended up retaining salary. Oh wait, is there view contracts? Is there a way to see? Yeah, none of this helps me, I think. I feel like his salary is gonna. Oh, oopsies. I was trying to do that so I can train somewhere else, but it is what it is. We still have a bunch of cap space, so it'll be fine, I suppose. But yeah, so he went up to an 84, so I was like, all right, we got to get rid of one of them, I guess, because they were also all like I feel like their role is all top 4, so obviously one of them would be pretty not happy with their playing time. So I was like, all right, I will kind of do the same for like, but the Leafs did end up doing at some point and trading Dion Phaneuf anyways. So I was like, all right, I'll trade him. I guess I ended up retaining salary on it by accident. So that is kind of whatever. So yeah, so Eric Brewer will still be our third pairing defenseman going into the season, but we didn't really have any openings kind of come up in the lineup, so we didn't really need to sign anyone. So we're pretty much running it back as is with Riley in for Phaneuf, and then like a youngster in for the guy we originally had on the fourth line instead, and then Uncle Leo Komarov might not be our fourth line center. It kind of depends on if there's like a young guy who's like a 1 overall hybrid role was listed as depth forward, so going into the season, if he got an increase in overall more, maybe he'll end up taking Komarov's spot on the fourth line. But do we literally only have? Is this just okay, now we have some guys. Okay, we do have someone to like be our like backup. But yeah, so that's kind of in terms of like off-season moves and stuff. Does it say if I retain salary in the trade things? I really thought I didn't, but I don't think it's gonna say. Oops, well, whatever. Exit, yeah, so in terms of expectations for next season, again, I think we should hopefully make the playoffs again, unless Dion Phaneuf is like that central to us doing well, and like him leaving like tanks us somehow. which that would suck because I feel like this next season is probably gonna be the last one, either because Brewer's gonna retire at the end of the season, or because his overall is just gonna decrease so much that he won't be like a viable third pairing defenseman anymore. But you never know. But hopefully we make the playoffs and kind of can maybe get a rematch against the Lightning and defeat them this time, and kind of get back to the Cup final again. But if not, it'll be what it'll be. But gonna kind of stop talking for this section, and when you hear me again, I'll be recapping the 2016-17 season. As you can see, we're gonna post the season pre the draft after the 2016-17 season. It probably gives you a hint about how we did. But let's start off with the regular season. As you can see, we finished with a 55, 24, and 3 record, which was good for 113 points, which was most in the league. So we won the President's Trophy by a solid, by 4 points over Anaheim. So pretty solid stuff. Goals for per game 3.66. Goals against 2.57. So that's that big gap. Probably why we had won so many games. In terms of player stats, as you can see here, Phil Thrill had 105 points, 51 goals, 54 assists, which I'll tell you now was the leading scorer in the league. So he got a lot of awards, which we'll see in a second. In terms of Eric Brewer, there he is. Played all 82 games, had 1 goal, 8 assists for 9 points. So pretty solid considering he was again on the third pair, plus 11, and regressing, so good stuff from him. And then in terms of playoffs, so as you can see here, we did it. So it was a good thing. I kind of decided to stick with it and trade Dion Phaneuf rather than kind of ending the series because we ended up winning the Stanley Cup. So as you can see, round 1 we got a matchup against the Sabres, who were the second wild card with 96 points, and we swept them with 7-2, 1-0, 4-3, and 3-2 wins. Second round we got a matchup against the Canadiens, who were second in the Atlantic with 106 points. That one went to 7. They won game 1 3-2. We won the next two 5-2 and 3-0. They then tied the series with a 4-3 win. We then won game 5 3-2. Habs forced to game 7 with a 2-1 win, and we escaped with a 5-3 win in game 7 to make it to the conference finals against the Detroit Red Wings. We were the first wild card with 100 points. That series also took 7 games. See, we won game 1 3-1. They won game 2 2-1. Neither won games 3 and 4 6-2 and 2-0. Detroit won the next 2 2-0 and 4-3 to force a game 7, where we then didn't scrape by. We kind of destroyed them 6-0 to win game 7, make it to the Cup Finals. Where we faced off against the Dallas Stars, who finished in the second wild card in the West with 90 points. So yeah, they're the team with the lowest point total, and actually that's not true. They're the team with the second lowest point total in the playoffs. And we were the Mavericks' best team in the regular season. We won game 1 4-2. Stars won game 2 4-0. And then we won the next 3 2-1, 4-3, and 6-1 to win the Stanley Cup. In terms of player stats, kind of just probably scroll through all of them here so you can kind of see. So we got Kadri and Stick were our 2 leading scorers. Eric Brewer had 4 goals, 1 assist for 5 points, which is pretty solid. Basically a little over half his regular season total in like a third of the games. So yeah, Lebo, Trouba, Polak at the bottom. In terms of goalies, how did Bernier do in the playoffs? Pretty solid. He played all the games. 1.87, 1.88 goals against, 934 save percentage, and 4 shutouts, which was game 7 against Detroit. Game 3. Oh, here we go. Game 7 and 4 against Detroit. Game 3 against Montreal. Game 2 against Buffalo. So pretty solid stuff there. In terms of awards. So obviously we won the Cup, and the President's Trophy, and the Prince of Wales Trophy. So pretty good there. Individual, as I said, Phil Kessel kind of got a ton because he was the leading scorer by like 9 points. So you obviously won the Art Ross, you won the Hart. Norris went to PK Subban. Lady Bing also went to Phil the Thrill. Calder went to Johnny Gaudreau. Conn Smythe went to Jonathan Bernier, though when you see at the end, it's going to, like, the little video at the end gives it to Peter Holland. I'm guessing because he had, like, the most points in the game to decide the cup. But it actually went to Bernier. Vezina and the Jennings went to Tuukka Rask. Masterton went to this guy from the Flames. Selke went to Jonathan Toews again. Lindsay went to Phil the Thrill. And then Rocket Richard, it shows Corey Perry's picture here, but you can see it says Corey Perry, Ovechkin, and Kessel all won. So they all finished, I think, with, how many goals did Phil have? I think 51. Yeah, so they all finished with 51 goals in the regular season. But, yes, this is a pretty epic season. So, as I said, I'm really glad that, let me just pull up, I guess. There it is. Yes, I'm really glad I ended up kind of sticking with it and trading Dion Phaneuf instead of ending the series, because we won the cup here. So this is a successful Jersey Quest be a GM mode here in NHL 15, which is probably like the worst NHL game ever. But yeah, we won the cup, so not that bad. I guess it's not can't be that bad, eh? But yes, pretty pumped. So yeah, next series will be a Kit Quest. Who? Not quite sure yet, but it should be fun. A fun one, hopefully. And yes, I was really pumped about this. Kind of stop talking in a second. You'll kind of see the little video, which is basically the same as it was in NHL 2004 with the Leafs. And I made Eric Brewer captain for this season. So that, he was like, we traded Eric Phaneuf, who was our captain. I was like, all right, Brewer's also a defenseman. He's older. He'd be a good leader. And so you'll see him hoisting the cup and all that good stuff. But yeah, so thank you for checking out this kind of longer single episode, basically series in an episode here for the Jersey Quest BGM mode. Hopefully check out whatever Kit Quest ends up being next. Thank you.
And the game is over. The series is over. These are the Stanley Cup champions. A fitting tribute to a wonderful season. Training camp in September was a dream. For this team, it is a nightmare. They got so far. We'll have the same short summer, but nothing to show for it. It is a most noble part of a collision sport, an exhausting series of games. Handshakes replace all the adrenaline from the last hours. The playoff MVP gets the Conn Smythe Trophy, and here is the winner. It's often said it's the hardest prize to win because it takes 8 weeks. And by tradition, the captain is the first to hold it high. And there's always a pecking order as to how it gets handed off, and that's all a part of Stanley Cup lore. You can only imagine how much soreness you fight through in a collision sport. Guys have lifted this cup with dislocated shoulders after hernia surgeries just 2 days before. Doesn't matter. It's over 30 pounds. They find a way. You play that hard and that long. You get your names on a trophy, rings on your fingers, and one last photograph. Evidence of it all.